Let's talk about the major scale. Every single major scale is what we call a diatonic scale, meaning it has 7 unique pitches and it starts and ends on the same pitch. It also follows the exact same pattern. That's what defines it as a major scale. And the major scales pattern is whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. 2 whole steps, a half step, 3 whole steps, a half step. It's important that you have this memorized. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Say it with me. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Now say it once on your own. Very important that you memorize that. Now, if we were to start a major scale on C, we would get C, and then D, E, F, G, A, B, and then a half step up to C. You'll notice that diatonic scales use every letter once and only once. It's very important that you keep in mind every letter once and only once. So for instance, we wouldn't say E and then a half step up E sharp because we've already used E. So we have each one of those and they follow that pattern. Now if we start the diatonic major scale on C, we have all natural notes, which is what makes the C major scale unique. But we could start that same pattern anywhere else, and it would still sound similar to C major. For example, here's C major. But if we take the same pattern and start it on, let's say, A major, we see we have a lot of similar qualities to the sound. Even though we can tell it's lower, it has the same characteristics. And that's because it follows this pattern. By recreating any scale starting note and then following this pattern, we've recreated a major scale built on that note. So let's do one or two for an example. If we go with the A major that I just mentioned, we would have A and then a whole step takes us up to B, and then another whole step takes us up to C sharp, and then a half step up to D, a whole step up to E, and now a whole step above E, F sharp, and a whole step above F sharp is G sharp, and now a half step above G sharp, we end on A. Let's try one more example. We'll do bass clef this time. If we start on E flat, now we have a whole step from E flat to F, and a whole step from F to G, and now a half step. We can't put G sharp as a half step above G because we've already used the letter G. Instead, we have to write A flat. This is a very important concept to get down. Because we use each letter once and only once, when we've already used G, we can't use G again in the same form of the scale. On our way up, we can't use G twice. So we have to use an A flat. Now, a whole step above A flat can't be A sharp because we've already used A, so it has to be B flat. Now, going up from B flat, we've got C, and then another whole step up to D, and then finally a half step at E flat. So we've got whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And we can look at all three of these scales, C, A, and E flat. Even though they're in drastically different ranges and they start on different clefs, and this one has sharps and this one has flats and this one has none, they all bear a striking resemblance in the characteristics of the scale because they follow the major scale pattern. So again, that pattern is whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And if you start on a pitch and produce that pattern, you've now created a major scale.